What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. As always, we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge here at the PHLY Studios, and we are brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, and TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Head on over to any one of their 24 branch locations or stop online at TrueMark.com/PHLY 24/7 to get started today. A happy Friday to each and every one of you as we eagerly await the wild card round of the NFL playoffs and the Eagles and 49ers game at 4:30 on Sunday. We've had some slew of college football playoff games, including last night. Miami heading to the national championship. They'll await the winner of the Indiana Hoosiers and the Oregon Ducks. And I swear to you, if one more Big Ten team wins a national championship, I am going to scream. As my producer is an Oregon Duck alum. We'll talk to him in just a little bit.
I guess I need you to scream then.
Anyway, welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. A happy Friday to every one of you. We've made it to the end of another work week as we get closer and closer to the start of the Major League Baseball season. The World Baseball Classic is around the corner, spring training around the corner, and for Phillies fans, hopefully some news or at least some light on the conversation surrounding Bo Bichette, as reports have surfaced that Bo Bichette and the Phillies are going to meet on Monday to discuss a potential contract, discuss his free agency, his best fit, where he would sit in the lineup, where he would play defensively, and what he would do to help bolster the Phillies. Now, we'll get into all of that throughout the show. We're also going to hear from Chris Jimenez, who was a guest on MLB Network Radio yesterday. I want to hear a clip from him discussing the fallout of a Bo Bichette contract, what it means for JT Realmuto, what it means for Alec Bohm and Bryson. We will hear from him in just a little bit, and we'll react to what he had to say yesterday on MLB Network Radio. We'll also get into a couple of other things. So here's what's coming up on the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Of course, Bo Bichette is the headline of today's show, but all 7 arbitration-eligible Phillies have signed a one-year deal to avoid arbitration. The most money was handed out to Jesus Luzardo. He'll make $11 million this coming season. So I want to talk about what a contract extension could look like for Jesus Luzardo. We're going to get into the Tarik Skubal arbitration conversation because I think this is maybe a tipping point in the future of arbitration. Tarik Skubal asked for $32 million in arbitration. The Tigers put in for 19. It's the largest discrepancy in arbitration era history. We'll talk more about that and what it means for Skubal's future with the Tigers. And then, as always, on Friday, we'll wrap things up with a little Friday Phillies trivia to take you into the weekend. Hello to everybody out there once again. Tyler Zulli here, Ethan Hartley producing today's show, and everybody else in the chat. Thank you so much for being a part of today's episode. Let's dive into the conversation about Bo Bichette, because I have scoured Twitter over the last 48 or 72 hours when it became known that A, Bo Bichette will be taking a meeting with the Phillies, B, there is mutual interest between the two, and C, that there's conflicting reports about, is he a priority for the Phillies? Are the Phillies a priority for him? And what does the money and all of that start to look like? How do the Phillies maneuver this contract negotiation? We have talked about Bo Bichette in a multitude of different ways. The good, the offense, the bad, the defense, where he plugs into the lineup, where he would play defensively, what a contract would look like, and what it meant for Don Mattingly to be a part of this coaching staff, not just on the day-to-day on the field stuff, but in the recruitment process of Bo Bichette. But the one thing that we haven't had a chance to dive too deeply into today, and that's kind of where I wanted to start today's show, was the fallout for the rest of the Phillies lineup, specifically in the catcher position at third base and at second base. The question is, where does Bo Bichette fit into the defensive side of things? Because offensively, there is no question about it. He's going to hit somewhere in the top 4. And I think many would put him in the 2 spot. I have argued back and forth internally that maybe even the 4 spot would make sense because I like Kyle Schwarber hitting second. I like the idea of my best hitter, at least from last season, my best hitter, my 2 best hitters really from last season, he and Trey Turner, getting the most at-bats. Now, the old school of thought is that your best hitter hits third and your power hitter hits fourth. That's how lineups have been constructed pretty much throughout the history of baseball. That thought process has shifted a little bit over the last couple of years, where you have seen teams way more willing to have their best hitter hit first or second, regardless of their speed threat. Now, the leadoff spot traditionally was a guy who was able to see a lot of pitches, a guy who could steal bags, a guy who walked a ton. Kyle Schwarber does two of those three things well, but the argument about him hitting leadoff is pretty much a moot point at this point. They've proven that he's not the leadoff hitter when Trey Turner is able to fill that spot. Kyle Schwarber had the most home runs in his career, the most RBI in his career. His numbers were MVP caliber numbers. He finished second in the MVP voting in the National League. But the Phillies have moved him up to the 2 spot ahead of Bryce Harper because they want to get him more plate appearances. The difference between the 2 spot and the 4 spot across the last 10 years in baseball or thereabout is about 30 plate appearances. Now, over 162 games, that comes out to be 1 plate appearance every, almost 5.5 games. It doesn't seem like that much, but for a guy who's in the lineup almost every day, or in some cases throughout his time with the Phillies, every day, like Kyle Schwarber is, 30 plate appearances is a heck of a lot of a difference. And so I think that there is an argument to say you could construct this top 4 in any way you want. Want to split the lefties? Go ahead and do it. Want to keep Kyle Schwarber at 2? Go ahead and do it. Want Kyle Schwarber to hit in the traditional 4 spot and have Bo Bichette hit 2 as a guy with really good bat-to-ball skills, a guy who has the ability to drive runners in, a guy with gap-to-gap power, a guy who can move runners over and do all the things that you need him to do at the plate? Go ahead and do it. They would have flexibility offensively. So I think whether you want him to hit 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whatever fluidity of this top 4 you want, there's no question he makes your top 4 better. I think the question in today's show is, what does the rest of the lineup look like if you add Bo Bichette? Because the conversation has seemingly shifted to Bichette or JT. And I don't necessarily think that that's a fair place to be, because if it's one or the other, I think the easy decision is to say, I want the better hitter. And so that in and of itself is an easy place to sit. If you say Bichette or JT and it's just lineup construction, Bichette every day of the week. Understanding, we've talked about this on Wednesday, we've talked about this throughout free agency, understanding what JT Realmuto means to the Phillies, especially means to the Phillies pitching staff and means to the Phillies base running elimination. The guy that has the best pop time in baseball 6 of the last 7 years. The guy whose caught stealing percentages have been excellent since he's joined the Phillies. JT means a lot to this team. There's no question about it. But if you're playing a one or the other game, I think most people would find themselves in the realm of Bo Bichette over JT Realmuto. I think the bigger question would lie, what's the step back at the catcher position? And is that the holdup for you in signing a Bo Bichette? The second holdup, of course, would be the money on the dollar for 2026 specifically is $2 to $1 every dollar over the luxury tax. I think even when you put all of those factors into consideration, my most intriguing outlook on this team would be the following move. Sign Bo Bichette. Figure out a younger replacement for JT Realmuto, understanding that there's maybe a step back at the catcher position in both the repertoire with the battery between he and the pitchers and the base stealing, the defensive base stealing. But the easiest step forward for me in terms of making your lineup better would include signing Bo Bichette, figuring out the catcher position, and then making the decision on one of the other, either Bryson Stott or Alec Bohm being moved. And this is where I get into the weirdness of what I've seen over social media over the last couple of days, and it's been a vocal minority of Phillies fans, because multiple things can be true at once. I do truly believe that Alec Bohm is, I don't want to say like villainized because it's baseball, it's sports, but is viewed in a negative scope and sent vitriol that may be unwarranted on a productivity conversation. I understand the frustrations with the fact that he's 6'5" and doesn't hit a lot of home runs. I understand the frustrations with the helmet spiking and the immaturity at times from Alec Bohm. But I also think that you have a guy who is probably undervalued in this city and is asked to do more than he should be doing. This is a guy who, if he hits 6th in your lineup, you have a really good team. He's been asked to hit fourth out of necessity because he can drive runs in, because he has doubles ability, because those extra base numbers are there. So I think when you look at Alec Bohm, two things can be true at once. One, I think he gets more vitriol than is deserved. And two, if you sign Bo Bichette, moving Alec Bohm is the most likely outcome. And this is where we get to the clip from Chris Jimenez, who was on MLB Network Radio yesterday. And I want to play this for you in its entirety because I want to be able to react to this together, because I think he and I are in lockstep for most of the conversation. But the breaking point, the pivot point for me, really kind of revolves around Alec Bohm more so than JT Realmuto. And we'll talk about it in just a second, but I wanted to play this clip from you first, from MLB Radio from yesterday's conversation.
I'm sure they do have interest in Bo Bichette. In fact, we know they have interest, and they should have interest in Bo Bichette. It could cause some other issues down the line, though, in regards to now you have to trade a player. This is a player that's kind of been on the trade block for the last year plus. And the fact that nobody's pulled the trigger on a trade for Alec Bohm yet kind of scares me, right? Because now you're having to sell him completely below market at this point, because everybody knows you need to trade him if you do sign Bo Bichette. So your leverage there isn't necessarily where you'd like it to be. Then you're dealing with the fact that could Bryson Stott slide over to third base and play third base and do it well? Yes, let's just make it easy. I absolutely think that's the case.
Yeah.
Would I like to see Bryson Stott at third base or Bo Bichette at third base? If you ask me, I think Bryson Stott would be a better defender at third base and keep Bo at second base, where he did a good job in the playoffs. So there's a way for this to work. But then catching situation. Yeah. What are you going to do about that? To me, this is a complete no-brainer. If you're Realmuto in his camp now, is your options have to be limited. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. He's a very valuable commodity, and I would take him to be my catcher too. I still think he is one of the best catchers, all-around catchers in Major League Baseball. Yeah, has his offense taken a little bit of a step back? Of course, but that's a natural progression for somebody his age, number one. But number two, somebody that's caught the amount and logged the amount of innings that JT Realmuto has. I don't think this pitching staff is as good as it has been the last few years without him on it. He has that feather in his cap. If you're sitting there waiting and negotiating, why not put a little extra pressure on a guy like this to ultimately get this thing over the top?
With the two points that he and I agree with. The first is the easy one. Bryson Stott's defense at third, I think, will play. I think he's an excellent defensive player. I think he's best suited as a second baseman. I think he's an elite defensive second baseman. I think he's a good defensive shortstop. I think sliding over to third would be a play that could work defensively for them. I don't think there's an issue with that defense. The second part is that I agree with him, and we talked about it on Wednesday. JT is an integral part of this pitching staff and has been for quite some time. That is why he has earned the right to be a little bit stubborn. The problem with the stubbornness is there is a dividing line in the sand somewhere, and I think he's too far over the other side. If he wants to draw the line at years or money, I think he has flexibility to do that. If, and this is just me pontificating, I don't have any sources behind this. If he's arguing both of those, I don't think he can get both in the same offseason unless it's for or with a team that is not the destination of his choosing, per se. So I think that part is true as well. The part in the beginning, though, where I disagree with Chris and on his point is not factually. Factually speaking, you probably would be moving Alec Bohm for percentage of what you would like to move Alec Bohm for. But let's flash back to last offseason when the conversations about Alec Bohm trade had really started to materialize. Alec Bohm that offseason was coming off of a 90-plus RBI year, a year in which he had 50-plus extra base hits, a year in which he played basically every game and was an all-star. And they didn't get what they wanted. Now, if what the report was true was what they were asking for was more than what teams were willing to budge on, then that's a Phillies problem, not necessarily a trade perspective problem. That's a larger scale, like, hey, this is what we value Alec Bohm at, and this is what everybody else values Alec Bohm at, and they didn't come, like the scales didn't balance. And because of that, They retained Alec Bohm, who made pretty minimal money for an everyday third baseman. And it made sense that Alec Bohm was going to be the starting third baseman in 2025. I still think there is a very realistic chance, because I'm playing outside of the world that Bo Bichette signs with the Phillies, I still think there's a very realistic chance that the starting third baseman for the Phillies in 2026 is Alec Bohm. But if you're saying the holdup would be moving Bohm for percentage of what you expect him to be, that's kind of the hand you've been dealt at this point. And if you want Bo Bichette, and you don't want to move Bryce Harper back to the outfield, and you want to shed some of the salary, Alec Bohm getting $10.2 million this year in arbitration, if you want to make those things all come true at once, then yeah, you're probably going to trade Alec Bohm for less than what his value is. Because the reality is the value of Alec Bohm after the 2024 season was greater than the value of Alec Bohm after the 2025 season. He had an injury-filled season last year where he missed some time. His productivity dipped. His batting average, or excuse me, his extra base hits and his RBI totals were down because he missed some time. The doubles came down pretty significantly. He was, a doubles machine in 2024. That just didn't materialize in 2025. The defense has gotten better over the years, so he's a baseline average, good enough defensive third baseman to be an everyday third baseman. You don't worry about that nearly as much as you did a few seasons ago. But the reality is that the value of Alec Bohm at this point is less than it was a year ago. And if you sign Bo Bichette, as Chris points out, teams know you're going to have to trade, or at least you're going to want to try to trade Alec Bohm. You're going to get less value than what you hoped for a major league third baseman who's on the final year of his arbitration before he becomes a free agent and had a down year compared to the year prior. So if the holdup is not getting the value for Alec Bohm that you expected, well, then the likeliest scenario is you're not getting Bo Bichette, unless you're going to eat a whole bunch of money and Bohm moves to first and Harper moves to the outfield, which they have routinely said they don't want to do. And I don't think Bryce Harper wants to do. So I think you could pick one of the two. You can keep Alec Bohm and have him have internal value for your roster this year, or you can trade Alec Bohm for less than what you hope, but have Bo Bichette in your roster. And so I think only one of those two things happen unless they truly, truly, truly make a decision that we did not expect and Bryce Harper moves back to the outfield. I don't see that one happening. It's one of two, in my opinion. All right, let's welcome our second member of today's show into the program. That's our producer, our co-host, and the enemy of the state for my Penn State fandom for the next couple of days, which I guess it really doesn't matter. The Big Ten team is going to the national championship.
Yeah, you don't win either way.
And the likelihood is a Big Ten team is probably going to win the national championship.
Yeah.
That's gross. That's gross. Not going to lie to you. We'll talk about more about that in a little bit. I want to talk to you about this Bo Bichette situation. If you were the Phillies front office, is the value of Alec Bohm holding you back from acquiring Bo Bichette?
I'm sure from like a status standpoint, it would look really bad based on prior reports last year. Like Logan Gilbert's name was thrown around, and to not get a player nearly of that caliber.
Yeah, there was a lot of comparisons between the Phillies and the Mariners, specifically Bohm for a starter.
Yes.
That never materialized.
Yes, and all of them really outside of Bryce Miller had a pretty good season to where, you're looking at that, and if those conversations were true and they fell out, and then you sell Bohm again, pennies on the dollar, you're not going to get anything remotely close to that. That looks really bad. That's a really bad look. Even if I think you still allocate that money for Bo Bichette, I still think when looking back at that, it doesn't look.
The reason I think I'm not in lockstep with you here is this is the final year of arbitration for Alec Bohm. He's making $10.2 million, and it's a number at $10.2 million for an everyday third baseman. That's a very manageable number. It's why the Phillies kept him last year. It's why they might keep him again this year. But to me, this is Alec Bohm's final year as a Philly. No matter if it comes via trade or walking in free agency at the end of the season, I don't think the Phillies re-sign him. I think he gets a bigger contract than what they're willing to pay him from somewhere else. I think the likeliest scenario would be like smaller mid-market team who wants to get their toes into the free agent water, signs a 4-year deal, gives them $20 million, maybe not 20, but you get my point, right? So if this is the final year of Alec Bohm as a Philly, you could let him walk for nothing, or you could get something and then get the 5 years or 6 years or whatever it would be from Bo Bichette's contract.
Right, and I agree in that sense that I think it is the right move just to do it. I think I worry from their standpoint that the process in which it has played out is something they just don't want to do because of how it ultimately looks. And not that I think they care about the perspective of other people, but just the fact that they passed up on it now, I think it just makes their unwillingness more to settle for less.
And the thing that we talked about on Wednesday is, even if Bichette gets 30 a year, which might be a little bit high, but it's probably in the 25 to 30 range, I would think. You're eating that, like, if your ownership group says, hey, this is a really good chance to improve our team and keep a admittedly closing championship window open, we'll pay the $50 million for $25 million worth of Bo Bichette, knowing that next year, 38 comes off the books from just 2 guys. And there's multiple players that, we talked about Matt Strahm no longer being here. You're not paying him next season, and he would have been a free agent. You talk about Alec Bohm as a free agent. You talk about Jose Alvarado's player option being the final year of his deal. Now, of course, as we're going to talk about later in the show, a Jesus Luzardo extension probably is in the works, as we speak. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to get it done, but they're thinking about it. They have to think about it. Plus, you're still paying Aaron Nola $27 million. Plus, and then on top of that, you think about the next year after 2027, Zach Wheeler's $42 million is off the books. Now, if he says that he's going to retire and he does retire, then you don't have to worry about bringing him back. And even if you do bring him back, he says, hey, I want to play one more year. I don't think he gets another $42 million. So you might save $10 million there. Like, the money matching starts to figure itself out after the 2026 season.
So Ray mentions a player that I'm not sure where you think he plays, but does Aiden Miller play any kind of role in this and trying to manage that as well, or is that?
Yeah, I think that they would love to see Aiden Miller be their starting third baseman next season. Even though that they have maintained the whole time he's a shortstop, he's a shortstop, he's a shortstop. I think with Trey Turner still being entrenched at short, I think in a perfect world, the Phillies would go, hey, kid, take 2026, stay around in the minors. I would imagine probably start the year in AAA, I would think, because he had some time in AAA last year, right?
I believe so.
I know he spent most of the year in AA, but I don't remember if he spent any time in AAA. 8 games. So my guess would be he played 108 of his 116 games in AA. My guess would be start the year in AAA, play down there, get your reps, and then reevaluate in 27. I do think there's a very real chance that he could be their third baseman sometime in 2027. I don't know if it's right away, but you could fit, like, if it's Bohm for a year or it's Stott for a year with Bichette at second, you could figure out a way to bridge the gap between right now and June of 2027 if Aiden Miller can be your third baseman. But keep in mind, he's still only going to be 22 years old at the end of the season next year. Midway through the season, he turns 22. Just like Justin Crawford, it's a lot to put on a young kid's plate to say, hey, continue to ascend and then go be our starting third baseman. But I think in the back of their heads, they view third base as a 14, 15-month project, basically. A 15-month bridge if Miller can be the guy that they expect him to be.
Yeah, and it is interesting how this stands right now in the short-term window where if you're talking about still getting value or still getting something out of Bohm rather than letting him walk, what exactly does that look like in terms of the pieces moving around, trying to not blockade one of your more premier prospects?
Sure.
For the Phillies is more rare than other organizations.
Well, I mean, theoretically, he's kind of blocked anyway at the current juncture.
Yeah.
If they truly want him to be a shortstop, right? So there is a way. Like, Manny Machado forever wanted to be a shortstop, and it was like, well, go play third and go be elite at third, because Machado was disgusting at third base in his time in Baltimore. Like, the plays that the elite level plays that he would make were incredible. Mm-hmm. But it's like, go play third. And when when it opens itself up, you can go be our shortstop. And then he ended up playing shortstop in San Diego, and they've moved him back and forth a couple of times. But like, you're so good. Now, I'm not comparing Machado to Miller. I think Machado's a better player than Aiden Miller will become.
Yeah.
But you get my point. Like, if it's, hey, for the short term, go play this position, excel at it, and then we'll get you eventually to your natural position when that time does come that Trey Turner, we all think, inevitably moves to center field or left field or whatever it is.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I just think it is interesting that in the short-term window, there might be some movement. Like, is Stott still a long-term option at second base
Sure.
if Bo moves to third? And then where does Aiden Miller play? Or is he just inevitably traded for a starter or some other position? I think it is just interesting that certain teams value where their prospects end up being in a long-term window when you're still trying to win right now, but also factoring in that, you know, the Phillies historically for the last 10, 15 or so years haven't been like a premier farm system where it's very easy for them, you know, like LA, you know, they're fine packaging trading some of their best
Sure.
prospects for a win now
Because they
player.
can't.
Yeah,
Right.
and they just know, sure, the next one's going to come up right after that.
Yeah.
Whereas the Phillies, it's, you know, I think, and even the fans believe this, you know, there's like, we've talked about it before, like with Spencer Howard, like there was a lot of, we can't trade this guy. There's still a lot of potential.
Spencer Howard, Sixto Sanchez, Kyle Drabeck, Don Brown. The list runs pretty deep.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a pause. On the other side, we're going to get into the arbitration numbers that the Phillies signed with their arbitration-eligible players. We'll talk about a Jesus Luzardo extension. Tarik Skubal is in. This is going to be a weird arbitration case. I'm really looking forward to it. And then we'll get into our Friday trivia to wrap up today's show. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we'll be right back after this. New year, new you, right? That's what they always say. And if you're thinking about that with your finances and you've been waiting to take an advantage of a great offer to boost your savings, that's where our friends at TrueMark Financial come into play. They are offering a limited 5-month certificate at 4.25% APY. And with a minimum deposit of just $500, it's super easy to get started. So whether you're thinking about a special goal, whether that's a vacation, or, you know, maybe popping that question to a special somebody, or you're just thinking about your emergency fund or want smart ways to make sure that your money works just a little bit harder, this certificate is a great option. You can open your certificate today at TrueMark.com or by visiting any one of their 24 branch locations. Annual percentage yield is accurate as of 12/15/25 and is subject to change. Certificate requires a minimum deposit of $500. Federally insured by the NCUA. Visit TrueMark.com for full details. Again, visit TrueMark.com for full details today. Guys, let's be honest for a second. You get into your 30s, things start to get a little bit more difficult. Your workouts become harder. Your recovery time seems to take more time. So you start to do Google searches and figure out what's going on. Is it just because I'm getting older? And what keeps coming up? Well, potentially low T. And doctors, they act like TRT. It's no big deal. Just $3,000 for the rest of your life to shut down your natural production of testosterone forever. So if you want to head into the new year, turn back the clocks and make things easier for your body the natural way, that's where our friends at Mars Men come into play. They give you the same benefits of optimized testosterone, the energy, the strength, the focus, without shutting your body down. It's real natural ingredients, and it's like hitting the reset button on your body and your hormone factory instead of shutting it down entirely. So for a limited time, if you're interested, our listeners right now get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. It's a perfect way to kick off the new year strong. Again, mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. Back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zula, Ethan Hartley, and you guys hanging out in the chat. Thanks so much for being here on a Friday afternoon, and a happy almost weekend to you. Let's get into our big deal segment of the day, our big takeaway segment of the day, which is brought to you by our friends over at Xfinity. Xfinity, imagine that. Restrictions apply, of course, with our friends over at Xfinity. But our big takeaway segment of the day, it revolves around the arbitration numbers that have been signed. All 7 Phillies who are arbitration eligible signed deals to avoid their arbitration. This is the order in which they descending order in terms of the money that they made. Jesus Luzardo headlines the list at $11 million. Alec Bohm, 10.2. Joan Duran, 7.5. Bryson Stott, 5.9. Brandon Marsh, 5.2. Edmundo Sosa, 4.4. And Tanner Banks is at 1.2. So really no surprises here that all these guys were all going to be back, right? That's arbitration is really just a matter of do you and your team agree on a contract before you have to go in front of an arbiter? But at least now we know that all of these 7 players have been able to come to an agreement before arbitration kicked in. And having to go in front of an arbiter is a weird thing. I've talked about this for a while. It's like, hey, thanks so much for what you did last season. And the player goes in and goes, yeah, no problem. Here's X, Y, and Z as to why I think I should make fill in the blank amount of money. And then the team goes, yeah, those things were all great. But what about A, B, and C? Maybe you don't deserve as much money as listen, I get it's a business. We're going to talk about the Tarik Skubal thing later. That's like most business thing ever. But I think arbitration is a weird thing with no real fix, because the alternative would be, I guess, everybody's a free agent pretty much right away. And then I wonder if it does water down the market for everybody, where teams would just immediately go and sign the good 21-year-old player who had a breakout year. I don't know what the fix is, but the point is, it's good that the Phillies were able to get all of these guys locked up before an arbitration case, because now you can know exactly how much you're paying every one of these guys. Some of them were a little bit above slot value, some of them a little bit below slot value, but the expectation was that these guys would slot in basically in total with about that, $40-ish million spent. So Luzardo and Bohm, 21. Duran gets them to 28, almost 29. Stott's at 34. Marsh gets them to 40. Sosa 44, Banks 45. That 40 to 45, maybe even up to 50, was kind of exactly what we expected for all 7 of these guys to make combined. So it's good to know exactly how much they were going to spend with their arbitration level players, because now they know how much they're going to spend elsewhere if they do spend in free agency, whether it be in the Bo Bichette camp or in somewhere else. And so really the big takeaway for me is that Jesus Luzardo is making $11 million this upcoming season. Now, they will have to start to think about a contract extension, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But my takeaway is that $11 million for a guy who sans 2 really, really, really bad starts was I don't want to say Cy Young caliber pitcher, but a very legitimate top of the rotation type of guy who, if you take out those 2 starts against Milwaukee and Toronto, which again, you can't do, it's the scope of 30 plus starts over a season, he would have been at like a 3.1 ERA. He finished the season at a 3.9 because those 2 starts were so bad. He gave up 20 earned runs over like 6 innings pitched, but he was extremely reliable and consistent for almost all of his starts in this season. Ethan, if I had to ask you, in terms of AAV, where you think Jesus Luzardo slots at $11 million amongst starting pitchers for 2026, what do you think it is?
I'm going to admit I accidentally
Did you look it up?
I looked at your outline,
Okay.
and I did see the number, but it is really impressive.
Is Jesus Luzardo the 50th best starting pitcher in baseball?
I would say
he's better than that, right?
That. Yep.
And he's going to be the 50th highest paid pitcher per AAV in 2026. So my big takeaway is $11 million for Jesus Luzardo is a steal of a contract. He's the 50th highest paid player next year, the highest paid starting pitcher next year in terms of 1 year's worth of pay at $11 million. They're going to have to worry about what his extension looks like down the road. But for 2026 specifically, that's a steal, man.
Yeah, that's pretty good in terms of, now that he's fairly healthy and back on track, you're going to get a lot of starts out of him, which I think is highly necessary at this point. With still questions about Wheeler and what Nola can produce and where Painter fits
if Painter comes up.
Yep, and having somebody as consistent in terms of health and availability as of the rest in terms of who's available in the league, I think is incredibly valuable to have. Like, always knowing what you're going to get out of Jesus Luzardo.
So my big takeaway is about Jesus Luzardo today. It's brought to you by our friends over at Xfinity. Xfinity, imagine that. I think that this is a really pivotal year, of course, for Jesus Luzardo in terms of what his contract extension looks like. But for a team that is spending a boatload of money already and may spend more if they do sign Bo Bichette, getting your top of the line type of starter for $11 million is really, really important for this team. I think there's a couple of guys on this list that if they are, even Alec Bohm specifically, like if Bohm is with the team, may or may not be with the team, $10 million for an everyday third baseman is not a bad price. $7.5 million for your elite level lockdown closer is a really good price. You know, I think people were complaining about Bryson Stott making $6 million as if that's some kind of like knock on the organization. $6 million in baseball at this point for, you know, I don't want to say free agent players, right? Because it's not, he's not a free agent, but for a guy that is in his third year of arbitration, $6 million per season is really nothing. $6 million. In fact, it's the 5 point, what did I say? It was 5.9. I'm just going to go and find this really quickly. 5.9 doesn't rank in the top 100 players AAV this year. You got to have fringe pieces who could potentially contribute. And even if Stott doesn't provide you much offensively, the defense is there. For $6 million for the DRS that he puts together, the fielding run value that he puts together, that's a Gold Glove caliber defensive second baseman. And at that threshold, $6 million, I'm not going to complain about it.
100%. And I think there's still opportunity to grow in terms of his offense, in terms of his hitting, and I think I'd rather take that than...
I may have overvalued him as an offensive player a few years ago in 2023 when he had a really solid offensive season. I may have overvalued him maybe by a lot, but there's no question the defense has value.
100%, yeah. Especially when the other players around him and what he can help complement. You know, he's one of the more important players for this team.
Sure, defensively,
especially. Yeah,
for sure. So that's our big deal. Our big takeaway segment of the day, brought to you by our friends over at Xfinity. Let's take a break. On the other side, let's get into the Tarik Skubal conversation. Jesus Luzardo contract extension, what it may look like, and we'll finish up today's show with a little Friday afternoon trivia here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we'll be right back after this. Do you really want one of your starting pitchers pinch hitting in a big spot? Of course you don't. It's not worth the risk, the time, or the money. You want to keep your stars focused on what they do best. And the same can be said for your business. You don't want your top people buried in operations, the tedious, time-consuming, redundant activities that not only take their time away, but also wear them down. You want to make sure your impact players stay fresh and focused on what they do best. That's where our friends at Togo come in. They're an integrated part of your team that take the work off your starter's plate so they can focus on making your company and your business move forward. Every engagement starts with free process mapping and engineering, and there is not a dime billed to you until the real work begins. And with each Togo program, they include a dedicated staff, custom automation, and a US-based process engineer team who act as your quarterback while you stay in control. At Togo, they turn your playbook into performance. You call the shots, they execute your way, and they advise along the journey. Visit harnesstogo.com to scale smarter, work faster, and stay focused on winning. All right, with the winter months in full swing, you know that means we have an incredible slate of sports across a bunch of different platforms, whether it be pro football playoffs about to start, college football playoff in full swing, and how about this, pro hockey, pro hoops, and college hoops, all right there for your watching enjoyment. And if you call yourself a sports fan, you have to get Xfinity. There's no lagging, no buffering, no switching between apps. It's just the best sporting destination where you can find all of the best games and your favorite teams all in one place. It's the perfect fan flex where you get all of that action right there in your living room. And with crystal clear optics, enhanced sound with 4K, it's going to feel like you're at the arena or at the stadium anyway, and you don't have to worry about battling traffic and paying for tickets. And sometimes you can have up to 4 games going at once with the quad box, because why not? You can. And on top of that, you get real-time notifications and live stats right there on your TV. So next game day, make sure that big fan in your life isn't a big fail. Tell them to learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli and Ethan Hartley hanging out with you guys in the chat today. Let's talk about this Tarik Skubal thing for a minute, Ethan, because this is a disaster for the Tigers specifically. So for those that don't know, obviously arbitration deadline was yesterday, and Tarik Skubal was probably the biggest name in arbitration. And this is the biggest disparity in player ask and team application in arbitration history. Tarik Skubal asked for $32 million. The Tigers put in for $19 million. Now, not only is it the biggest discrepancy in arbitration history, not only would it be the most ever by a starting pitcher to get. David Price currently holds the record of a little bit over $19 million for a starting pitcher in arbitration. It also would be the most in arbitration history, I believe Juan Soto has the record for the most money made in arbitration. $32 million, if Tarik Skubal wins, would be the highest arbitration number in the history of baseball. So, let's start here. I understand arbitration is a business. And I understand if you are running an organization, we just talked about getting guys that can contribute on smaller deals. We talked about a third baseman who is probably, is he or is he not going to be on this roster in spring? We don't know the answer to that question. A defensive first second baseman who provides you a very little bit offensively. We talked about all of those things. The one thing that we didn't mention when we talked about the Phillies, even though Jesus Luzardo is a heck of a pitcher and way better than worth the $11 million that he's going to get. The one thing we didn't talk about is, the best pitcher in baseball. You know why? Because exactly one team has the best pitcher in baseball. It's the Detroit Tigers. Tarik Skubal is a back-to-back Cy Young winner. And the question is, how many times have back-to-back Cy Young winners hit arbitration in the last 25 years? Ethan, you know what the answer is? 1. Tim Lincecum is the only one to do it. The only time in the last 20, almost 20 years, I should say, dating back to Lincecum's 08 Cy Young, has there been 2 times that a Cy Young winner has been arbitration eligible. Because think about Paul Skeens is still pre-arb. There's been a couple of guys who have been either before arbitration or free agents. But there's only been 3 instances now with Tarik Skubal of a reigning Cy Young winner being arbitration eligible. And again, I understand that this is a business aspect of things, but I think the Tigers are really doing a disservice to themselves by offering that much less than what Tarik Skubal asked for. Because $19 million is not a bad ask, or is not a bad claim for an arbitration-eligible player. Again, it would be the right around the most ever given out to a starter when David Price got 19 about almost 2 decades ago now, or a decade and a half ago. But what I would more argue is that the Tigers are acting foolishly in the long term. What they're telling me is that the Tigers plan to trade Tarik Skubal at some point. Because if they don't want to give him $32 million for 1 season, they're not going to give him $32 million for 8 seasons or 10 seasons or whatever the contract comes out to be. And it's going to be a sizable contract. When you have these small and mid-market teams who don't have the monetary flexibility that the larger teams do, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Phillies, those types of teams, I understand they have to be a little bit more shrewd in their business decisions. But I think it's short-sighted to try to be shrewd with the best pitcher in baseball, the guy who has won consecutive Cy Young awards, because what this tells me is they're going to move him to one of those big market teams who will pay him what his market value is and maybe even a little bit more. It, to me, feels like the Tigers are negotiating in some bad faith, not because of a lowball 1-year offer, because that's just kind of how the stupidity of arbitration works. It feels like a bad faith negotiation because Skubal and his camp could absolutely hold this over the heads of the Tigers if or when he gets to the actual free agent period of it. So I gave you the answer to the question here. I gave you the answer to the test, Ethan. How many of these pitchers have been arbitration eligible and won Cy Youngs since 2008? The answer is 2. It was Tim Lincecum and Corbin Burns. And if you remember, Ethan, Corbin Burns got really pissed off at the Brewers for what they offered him. Do you know why? Because Corbin Burns asked for $10.7 million. And the Brewers offered him $10.1 million. The Brewers groveled over their Cy Young winner for $600,000. There's no surprise that the following season, the Brewers traded Corbin Burns because they tried to negotiate a long-term extension and nothing got done. It's not a surprise at all that they ended up having to move him. And to get DL Hall and Joey Ortiz is a fine return for a guy who was on the final year of his deal and probably was not going to sign in Milwaukee. So you got something instead of nothing. But you pissed off your Cy Young Award winner to the point where he said, he didn't publicly say trade me, but I'm sure there were private conversations. So that's number 1. Number 2 is Tim Lincecum, who's the last one to win back-to-back and be arbitration eligible after he won the 2008 and 2009 Cy Youngs. He eventually was signed a 2-year extension, so kind of cleared out some of the arbitration, but it was for only $23 million. Now, if you put that into an inflation calculator, and I know that inflation calculators aren't one-to-one, especially when it comes to sports, but if you put it into an inflation calculator, he would have gotten about $35 million for 2 seasons, which is still less than what the Tigers offered at $19 million. Lincecum eventually got a 4-year, $75 million deal. So if you total those two together, it was 6 for $98, which was $16.3 million per season for a back-to-back Cy Young Award winner. I understand where the Tigers are coming from in the 1-year short term, but they're really, really damaging their flexibility and good faith negotiation for legitimately the best pitcher in baseball.
You wonder what kind of pinch that is with, as we see other teams just kind of scrape by with the bare minimum that they can and just, take the revenue sharing, really falls on the owner in that sense more than anybody and what exactly he's willing to pay out, and the general managers and the people in the front office just kind of have to move with what works for them. So it's kind of Skubal and the front office now having both of their backs against the wall in their own right, and the owner just kind of sitting on his hands.
The Tigers had the 16th highest payroll in baseball last year. They paid $182 million in payroll. If you look at the breakdown of the players that they paid, they had 3 guys making $20 million or more. $18 million or more. Javi Baez, Gleyber Torres, and Jack Flaherty. Tarik Skubal.
Get them off the books.
$19 million, and this is where you're groveling over? $19 million. You're going to lose the best pitcher in baseball because you won't sign him long-term before his arbitration is up.
And there's just a lot of other mediocrity in the top players that they paid. Like, they're not superstars by any means.
And it's guys who have had like resurgences in their career, no doubt. Like Gleyber Torres was an all-star last year. Had himself a decent year. Ended up hitting 256, but was much better in the first half than he was in the second half. Ended up being an all-star last year for the first time since 2019. But we're talking about the back-to-back Cy Young Award winner here. Little weird to me. Let's take a break on the other side. So we're going to hold off on the Jesus Luzardo conversation. We'll bring that to you as a special added conversation piece, a little bit of extra content tomorrow. So take a look for that because I want to get into our trivia before we wrap up today's show. We'll talk about the Luzardo contract extension tomorrow. You can find it on the PHLY Phillies page. Tomorrow at noon, we'll drop the video. But in the meantime, we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. On the other side, we'll wrap up our Friday festivities with a little bit of trivia. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast, and we'll be right back after this. Whether your favorite team wins or not, there's always another way to win with our friends at the BetParx online casino app. You can check out incredible new casino games like Huff and More Puff and Fireblaze Sky Queen, which is a BetParx exclusive. It's just a small reason as to why it's the only app that I would ever use to play all of my favorite casino games right there in the palm of my hand. I can play blackjack, roulette, craps, slot, poker, baccarat, and so much more. And those hot online slots like Cash Eruption and 88 Fortune, or incredible slot games based on your favorite streaming shows like The Walking Dead, Squid Game, Peaky Blinders, and so much more. And how about this? Right now, new users get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. So what you're going to do, head on over to betparx.com, download the app right now, and enjoy all of the action and the excitement right there at the casino, right there from your fingertips. You must be 21 and physically located in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan for BetParx. You love to play, you play to win, you bet, BetParx. Gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. You know, I'm a big believer in shopping local and staying local. And let me tell you about a local business that's been helping Philly homeowners and business owners stay pest free. That's our friends over at Evans Pest Control. It's not a giant national brand or a chain. It's just an incredible family-owned, community-focused pest control company right here in the Philadelphia area that has been earning your trust for years now. They use state-of-the-art equipment, safe and effective treatment options, and the best part, their techs are constantly going through continuous training, so they are equipped to handle anything that your home or business may throw at them. Rodents, insects, termites, and yes, even bed bugs. They offer incredible priority service and consultation, and you know for a fact it's nice to deal with local people and not a call center. You're going to deal with somebody who grew up in this area, knows what it means to keep their house safe and their business safe. So if you see signs of pests or just want to prevent them before they start, reach out to our friends over at Evans Pest Control. Visit evanspestmgmt.com to schedule your free consultation. Once again, that's Evans Pest Control, evanspestmgmt.com. Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli, Ethan Hartley, you guys hanging out in the chat. It is time to get to our trivia segment of the day as we wrap up each and every Friday with a little trivia. We haven't had a chance to do it in a while because last week we did Remember Me. The week before we did not have a show because everybody at PHLY was sick on the same weekend. So we haven't had a chance to do trivia in quite some time. So I thought today's trivia question, Ethan, was an interesting one because we were talking today about arbitration and Luzardo and Bohm getting the most money in arbitration. I went back and I went back and looked through since 2005, so the last 20 some odd years of Phillies baseball. The Phillies have had 40 players make at least $10 million per season. Now, this is going to include Jesus Luzardo and Alec Bohm. So I'll give you 2 of the 40 right off the bat to give you context to the question. There are 38 other players since 2005 to have made at least $10 million per season. As always, Ethan, a player counts one time, even if they've been with the team for multiple years or signed multiple contracts. A player counts one time. So in 2026, including Luzardo and Bohm, who we gave you the answer to the question, there are 11 players on the roster making at least $10 million. How many of these 40 can you name for us? This is a you in the chat versus the question scenario.
The older ones are going to be much harder for me. I think I would just be kind of shooting names. And
there's some very, like, when you think of Phillies baseball in the 2000s, it's like these guys.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess there isn't I guess probably with just how things have gone, there isn't much discrepancy.
There's a couple of guys that will be impressive that you get, but most of them are pretty easy, the big names over the last 20 years.
Okay, so we'll knock the easy ones out. As Brushy Bully starts off, Harper, Realmuto, Nola, Schwarber, Wheeler.
All right, so let me do this one at a time.
Yeah. Harper, Realmuto.
Yep.
Nola, Schwarber, Wheeler, Walker.
All right, 1 second. You got Nola. I'm just striking these through as we go.
Yeah. And then
Nola.
Ray Schumacher's got a big list for us.
Wheeler. You said Walker.
Yep.
I gave you Luzardo and Bohm.
Mm-hmm. Ray Schumacher says Howard, Rollins, Utley.
Howard. Yep. Howard's Rollins, Utley, the big 3 of that era. Yep. All of them made $10 million at some point.
Lidge, Holiday, Lee.
Lidge is on that list. Holiday is also on the list.
Lee.
Cliff Lee is on the list.
Oswalt.
Roy Oswalt never made $10 million here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought for an older player, you would have gotten that bag.
The most that Roy Oswalt made in a given season was... you know what? They missed him on the list. He did, in fact. He made 1 year, 2011. He made $16 million. Now, I wonder if that's because it was split. Well, he pitched a full season here, right? Pitched a full season here.
He did. Yeah, it was like 1.5 years. But
so Oswalt is on the list. My apologies.
Would the year that he was, are they counting, is the year that he made $16 the year that he was traded, in the sense that, he might have not.
No, it was 15 the year prior.
Okay, so he did. Yeah, all right.
Let me just double check.
Yeah. Then we got a bunch of names.
The Phillies declined his 2020 or his 2012 player option. $11 million payment for the 2010 season. So yes, he one season, 2011. Yes, he did make over. Yes, you are correct. My bad.
Right. Chad is rolling with a bunch of names.
All right, so the last ones we had were Holiday, Lee, Lidge.
Cole Hamels.
Hamels is on the list. Yep.
Jake Arrieta.
Jake Arrieta was one I wasn't sure if anybody would if we would get. Yes, Jake Arrieta is also on the list.
Papelbon.
All right, give me 1 second. Papelbon is on the list, correct?
I'm not sure who this player is. Thome. Thome.
Oh, that's Jim Thome.
Thome.
Yes, Jim Thome was the first one on the list.
Okay. Kepler.
Max Kepler. Yep, last year made $10 million. So you're still missing a couple from the current roster.
Markel Futz asks Scott Kingery.
No.
Wagner.
No, Billy Wagner was at like 9.5. He did not make the list.
Shane Victorino.
Nope.
Wow. Castellanos definitely.
Castellanos, yep, right now $20 million.
Garcia.
Adolis Garcia this year will make $20 million, or will make $10 million. Yep.
Gregorius.
Didi is on the list. Yes.
Yep. Taiwan Walker, we already guessed, unless this refers to another Walker.
No, it's Taiwan.
JT, we guessed. Reese Hoskins?
Nope.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Nope, not on Syndergaard.
Syndergaard didn't. Casty, we said. Violation.
Robertson did not make 10.
Really?
No.
I would have thought it would have been another Cooch.
Nope, not Chooch. No, not Marsh. He's at 5 point something this year.
All right, what are like?
You're still missing two guys from this year's team.
Segura?
Segura is on the list.
Okay. Bader did not make 10 million.
No.
Two guys from this most recent team.
I assume you said one of them and I just missed you say it. But I mean, it's one of their highest profile guys.
Oh, Turner?
Trey Turner.
No one said that.
One more. I see Kimbrel on the list. Kimbrel is there. Yep.
Nice. This year.
Yeah, you're missing one.
Sanchez?
Mm-mm. No, I don't think Sanchez makes over 10 until, I want to say maybe next season he starts to get over 10.
Wow. I would have thought.
It's such a ridiculous team-friendly contract.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. He doesn't get to 10 until his club option kicks in 2029.
Oh my God. Stott? No way.
Nope, he's at 5.9.
Yeah,
no. Worth signed the big deal in Washington. He never got paid a lot of money here.
I'm all over the place. I'm trying to screen chat and
yes, Wheeler was said.
And
it's
think
this
at the
one.
same time.
All right, so I'll give you a hint. This one is not one you're going to think about right away because he's set to make it for the first time with the Phillies.
On the team this year.
Correct.
You already counted Bohm.
Correct. Yep. Bohm and Luzardo were already counted.
Is this a reliever?
Ray, Pat Burrell is on the list. Correct.
Is this a reliever?
Yes. He's not pitched a game for the Phillies yet.
Oh, Brad Keller.
Brad Keller's making $11 million.
Okay.
So you're clear on everybody who is on the current roster.
Okay. Santana.
Carlos Santana. Yep, 2018. You have one more from the 2021 team, and then everybody else is 2017 or beyond.
Okay, 2021.
He is still in the league. Is back with the team he was most famous for.
Oh.
Now, Alvarado's just short. He's at like 9.5.
Back with the team he is most.
He's been there for 2 years now.
Oh, okay.
Played for, I'd say probably 5 or 6 teams at this point, including the Phillies, but is back with the team he's most well known for. Won an MVP with them.
I'm totally overthinking this. What?
All right, while you think about this one, let's say thank you to everybody who watched on our streaming platforms, our Roku, Xfinity, Samsung, all of our streaming platforms. Head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. It is officially overtime. So this guy had a 5 or 6 year run where he was legitimately one of the best players in baseball. Bounced around from a couple different teams. There you go. It's Andrew McCutchen.
Oh, wow.
It's Andrew McCutchen.
Wow.
So now you're clear until 2017. So you have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more players. One is, I'm going to tell you right now, one is not fair because one, they traded for him and he never played for the Phillies.
Wow.
He was an injury settlement. I think he retired after that.
Okay.
So I'll give you that one. It's Matt Harrison.
Okay.
Was part of the Cole Hamels deal, I believe. They acquired Matt Harrison, and he never played for them.
Kind of like your Ryan Ellis of the Flyers.
Yeah, except at least Ellis suited up a couple times.
That is true.
But I'll give you that one. It's Matt Harrison. But you have 3 more in 2017. Now, this is just the last year that they made this money. 3 more in 2017, 1 in 2014, 2 in 2012, 1 in 2009, 1 in 2007, and 1 in 2005.
All right. As Futz says, dark days players.
Some bad baseball.
This is where I feel like I could.
You're still missing a couple of pieces of the 2008 World Series team. A guy who is currently on the Hall of Fame ballot. Trying to give you some other hints. 2 guys that they acquired in the run trying to win another World Series.
Futz says Ibanez.
Yep, Raul Ibanez, 2011 was the last time he made $10 million here. You have 2 more guys who were on the 2008 World Series team.
Ryan Madsen from Ray Schumacher.
No, not Ryan Madsen. One was acquired at the 2008 trade deadline and has the distinction of a record that may never get broken again, assuming you don't count Shohei Ohtani on that record. Hunter Pence is on the list. Yep.
I'm totally overthinking this.
It's the player to hit the last starting pitcher to hit a home run in the World Series.
Pedro Feliz.
It's not Feliz on this list, but Ray Schumacher's got it right. It's Joe Blanton.
Oh.
You have 1 more player still on the 2008 team. A guy who is on the Hall of Fame ballot currently. A guy who pitched in the league forever and won the 2009 World Series with the Yankees. And then 3 guys that I will be super impressed if you guys get, because you just don't think about them. Oh, and a guy that they traded for, and it was a terrible trade.
I'm trying to run through names on the current ballot.
I would say that this player, at a point before the Phillies got really good, was considered the team's best player for quite a few years.
Oh. Moyer, Scotty Reed.
Nah, it was not Moyer. Nope, not Scott Air. It's 4 starting pitchers.
Brett Myers.
Brett Myers is on the list. Yep, he's the one on the 2008 team. So you've cleared the 2008 World Series team. You still have 3 starting pitchers, the Hall of Fame candidate, and a guy who I believe is on their coaching staff now. Last I checked.
Interesting. I'm focused on the most recent guys. Nick Pivetta never made.
Nope.
Yeah, nothing close to that.
No, it's not Ricky Bo. I believe he's still on their coaching staff. He was for a while.
I'm starting to run out of gas on ideas.
All right. I will give you this hint. Who?
Michael Franco?
No. The player on the ballot is a right fielder who, statistically speaking, has an argument, and I know a lot of people in Philly don't like him nearly as much as they should. The player that they traded for, they needed a top-of-the-line starting pitcher, and he ended up making very few starts for them and was ineffective when he did start. He made 11 starts and pitched to a 5.9 ERA.
Jose Mesa?
Nope, not Mesa. It's not Alfonseca either. They acquired, yes, Bobby Abreu is the one on the ballot currently. So Bobby Abreu is on the list. Good job there, Slem. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players left.
Is it who Futz guessed?
Not Polanco. Nope. Nope, not Marlon Byrd either.
Chat's really going to have to help me out at this point.
All right, so the player that was traded for, that they needed a top-of-the-line starter for, as I said, was a 5.9 ERA. They traded, I want to say they traded Gavin Floyd for him. No, it was Gavin Floyd and Gio Gonzalez for this pitcher.
Didn't we just talk about this?
We did just talk about Gio Gonzalez. Yep.
Would we have mentioned this trade at all?
Probably. Then the other three are probably going to be, they're in that dead period of bad Phillies baseball.
Rowand?
It's not Aaron Rowan. Nope.
I'm really bad at pronunciation.
2007. All right, we got to get moving. 2007 was Freddie Garcia, was the player that they traded Gio Gonzalez and Gavin Floyd for. Then in 2017, late addition, Chris Lem gets it. Jeremy Hellickson made back-to-back opening day starts. He made over $10 million. Howie Kendrick is the player on the Phillies coaching staff right now. And then the one that I think he ended up making 2 or 3 starts and then got hurt and was done for the year was Clay Buchholz. Okay. Better known as a Boston Red Sox, but they signed him to a $10 million deal or more. All right, that's the end of today's show. Big thanks to everybody for hanging out in the chat. We'll get you this Jesus Luzardo conversation tomorrow, so look out for it tomorrow at noon as well. Big thanks to Ethan Hartley for producing today's show. We will be back on Monday with our next live show here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Hopefully we have some more news for you about the Bo Bichette meeting with the Phillies. Until that time, the PHLY Eagles show today at 2, PHLY Sixers pregame show at 6:30, 10 minutes after the final horn. They will go live for post-game show. Flyers post-game show tomorrow night, pre and post tomorrow night. And then, of course, the Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, 4:30 on Sunday evening. Now, before we get out of here, Ethan, I know this is not the Eagles show, but I want to get your prediction for the wild card round.
I'm going to give it 23-17 Birds.
I am also taking the Eagles to win this one. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring than that, though. I am going to say the Eagles win this game 20-14. And I think the Eagles do a good job defensively of stifling the 49ers offense. They, especially if Trent Williams doesn't play, I think they have an opportunity to get after Brock Purdy a little bit. Obviously, that offense is good. They have some big playmakers all over the field. But I think the defense holds out and wins this game. I think it's ugly. I think it's gross. I think we're pulling our hair out for the offense for a majority of the game. I think the Eagles win this one 20-22. I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to go 20-16. I think there's a weird score in there with the 49ers trying to get back into the game. Eagles win this one and advance to the NFC divisional round, where we'll see what happens from there. But thanks to everybody for hanging out with us. We'll be back on Monday for the next edition of the PHLY Phillies podcast. Until that time, have an excellent weekend. Enjoy the first weekend of the NFL playoffs. And how about this? Go Birds. We'll see you on Monday.
We all silly like the mayor.